Bice's hands trembled as she handed over the last check for the party she had spent months planning. Every detail was hers, the decorations, the music, the catering. But before she even stepped into the grand hall, her sister Zoe's voice cut through the air like ice. "She's not allowed in." Bice froze, heart pounding. Every eye turned toward her. In that moment, all the effort, all the money, all her sacrifice felt like it had been stolen. But she didn't cry. Not yet. She smiled quietly and whispered to herself, "They just made me invisible, but I'm about to rewrite the rules." Bice's heart sank the moment she stepped toward the grand hall. She had spent months planning every little detail of her sister Zoe's engagement party, using all her savings, carefully choosing the decorations, the music, and even the menu. She had imagined the smiles, the laughter, the excitement of everyone seeing her hard work. But before she could take a single step inside, she heard her sister's voice, sharp and cold, cutting through the air. "She's not allowed in." Security immediately moved in to block her, and the crowd started whispering, glancing at her with confusion and pity. Bisa froze for a second, shock twisting in her chest. The humiliation hit like a heavy weight. Every dollar she had spent, every hour she had worked, felt like it had been erased. She could feel her cheeks burn. But more than embarrassment, anger started to rise inside her. She realized in that moment that this wasn't just about a party. This was about respect, recognition, and the betrayal of someone she had trusted completely. The eyes of the guests, the murmurs of disbelief, and the laughter she imagined behind closed doors stung. But Bisa didn't cry. Instead, a quiet determination took over. Every bit of humiliation fueled a fire in her that would not die down. She would not let this moment define her. This betrayal, sharp and cruel, had lit a spark in Bisa that no one could ignore, and she knew, even as she stepped back from the hall, that her next move would be one they would never forget. Bisa took a deep breath, trying to push down the anger and humiliation burning inside her. She turned slowly, letting the crowd stare, and walked out of the hall. Rain had started falling, and her expensive heels sank slightly into the wet ground, but she didn't care. Each step she took felt powerful, like she was leaving more than just a party behind. She didn't rush. She let the rain soak her, letting every drop wash away the weight of betrayal and shame. The city lights reflected on the wet streets, and for the first time that night, she felt a strange kind of freedom. Sitting on a nearby bench under a dim street lamp, she pulled out her phone and typed a single message to Zoe. "Enjoy your night. I'll see you soon on my terms." She didn't wait for a reply. That line, simple but full of promise, made her chest feel lighter. Bisa realized something important as she watched the party lights flicker in the distance. She was no longer playing by the rules her family had set for her. She wasn't just walking away from a party she had funded. She was stepping away from the people who tried to make her invisible, from the words that had tried to define her worth. The rain kept falling, soaking her hair and clothes, but she smiled quietly to herself. Tonight wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. She could feel the possibilities stretching out in front of her, like the wet streets glistening under the city lights. Bisa knew she had control now. No one could dictate her worth or her future. Every humiliation, every insult, every dismissive glance was now fuel for something greater. Sitting there in the quiet rain, she made a silent promise to herself. She would rise, she would be seen, and she would make sure the people who doubted her never forgot her strength. The party, the laughter, the security, all of it was behind her. Tonight, she was free and she would rewrite the story on her own terms. For the first time that night, Bisa felt the power of choice in her hands, and it made her heart beat with determination. The betrayal had not broken her. It had made her unstoppable. After that night, Bisa didn't speak to anyone about what had happened. She didn't cry in front of friends or family, and she didn't post anything on social media. Instead, she poured all her energy into a plan that no one could ignore. She started small, working from her apartment, sketching ideas for decorations, themes, and layouts. She made lists, called suppliers, and imagined every detail of events she wanted to create. Her mind was alive with possibilities. Slowly, she began reaching out to people she knew, friends of friends, colleagues, and a few high-profile clients who had seen her work before. She didn't brag about the past or mention the party she had been blocked from. She only promised her clients one thing: an event they would never forget, perfect down to the smallest detail. She offered a personal touch no one else could match. Word started to spread. People who attended her first few events were amazed by her ability to turn ordinary spaces into magical places. Photos and videos from these gatherings began circulating quietly on social media. Comments and messages poured in, all praising her creativity, taste, and flawless execution. Each compliment, each share, each new booking felt like a small victory, a quiet revenge that didn't need shouting. She booked weddings with colorful themes, birthday parties with extravagant decorations, and corporate events that impressed even the toughest clients. Slowly, her reputation grew, and people began comparing her events to the very gala she had been barred from. The irony was not lost on her, and every successful booking strengthened her determination. She worked late into the nights, sending emails, checking vendors, and perfecting plans, but she never felt tired. The fire inside her had become a calm but powerful drive. She knew that one day, everyone who had doubted her would see what she had created with her own hands. Her business was growing quietly but quickly. Every satisfied client became an ambassador for her talent, and soon, the name Baisa was spoken with admiration and respect. Her secret plan wasn't about revenge in the usual sense. It was about showing her value, proving her talent, and creating something that could never be ignored. Step by step, event by event, she was building her empire, and with every booking, she was rewriting her story. The night she was turned away from that party became the moment that pushed her to rise higher than anyone could have imagined. What started as a quiet plan behind closed doors was now becoming a force that no one, not even her sister, could overlook. Baisa's first big client after starting her event business was a socialite named Amara, someone who had once looked down on Zoe at a high-profile gathering. Amara wanted her birthday celebration to be unforgettable and hired Baisa quietly, trusting her to handle everything. Baisa poured her heart into the event, choosing colors, decorations, and lighting that transformed the space into a breathtaking scene. She coordinated every detail perfectly, from the table settings to the flowers, to the music that made the atmosphere magical. On the day of the party, everything went flawlessly. Guests arrived and immediately noticed the elegance and thoughtfulness of the arrangements. Many whispered to each other, amazed by the beauty around them, not knowing that the mastermind behind it all was the same woman who had been humiliated weeks before. Amara was thrilled and rewarded Baisa with a generous bonus, praising her attention to detail and professional touch. But what happened next was even sweeter. Photos of the party were shared online, and they spread quickly. Social media was buzzing with people commenting on the stunning decorations, the unique ideas, and the smooth execution. The comments were full of admiration. Who planned this? Incredible. This is the most beautiful event I've ever attended. Everything is perfect. With every post, every tag, every mention of Baisa's name, she could feel a quiet thrill inside. Each share was a small, silent victory, a way of showing the world her talent while reminding them of what Zoe had missed out on. It was not loud, it was subtle, but it cut deep into the pride of the sister who had once tried to erase her. Baisa didn't need to gloat or call attention to herself. The recognition came naturally because of her work. Seeing people celebrate her creativity and skill felt better than any confrontation. The sense of accomplishment warmed her more than anger or revenge could have. Slowly, her name began to circulate in circles that mattered, people talking about her in hushed admiration, recommending her services to friends, family, and colleagues. It was proof that her talent could not be ignored, and that her success was real, earned through hard work and genius. Every compliment, every share, every message of awe added fuel to her drive, building her reputation step by step. For the first time, Baisa realized that true revenge didn't come from arguments or insults. It came from showing the world her value, shining so brightly that no one could deny it, and letting her sister watch from the sidelines as her own efforts were finally recognized and celebrated. Months passed, and Baisa's reputation grew quietly but steadily. Her name was now whispered in admiration at social gatherings, and clients were reaching out just to work with her. One evening, she saw a public announcement that made her lips curl into a small, controlled smile. Zoe, the sister who had humiliated her, was hosting a charity ball at the same grand venue where she had been stopped months ago. Only this time, things were different. Zoe had to hire a professional planner because her friends and contacts didn't want to help her. Her past arrogance had left her isolated. She thought she could still control everything, but the world had begun noticing who was truly talented. When the day of the ball arrived, security at the venue instinctively moved to block Baisa as she approached the entrance, just like before. But this time she held up her contract signed weeks in advance. Every eye in the hall followed her movements as she calmly handed over the papers. The manager nodded, confirming everything. And suddenly the very power Zoe had tried to wield over her months ago had reversed. Baisa wasn't just allowed in. She was the one who controlled the event. She walked through the doors with confidence, her head held high, every step deliberate. The crowd, the staff, even Zoe herself noticed the change. Guests whispered, realizing that the organizer of this grand event wasn't Zoe, but the sister she had once tried to erase. The irony was delicious. Baisa's calm smile said it all. She didn't need to shout or accuse anyone. Her presence, her authority, and her contract spoke louder than any words ever could. Zoe's eyes widened as she understood that the tables had turned completely. The humiliation of months ago was now mirrored back in a way she could not escape. Baisa walked through the hall, observing the setup, making small adjustments, and directing her team with quiet precision. Every detail reflected her skill. Every glance from the guests confirmed her growing fame, and every whisper about her talent chipped away at Zoe's pride. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving that true talent could not be ignored, that dedication and hard work would always find recognition. Baisa had transformed humiliation into opportunity, and now she was the one writing the story of the event, while Zoe could only watch. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and Baisa felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that she had arrived not with anger or confrontation, but with skill, grace, and undeniable authority. This night was no longer about a charity ball. It was about Baisa showing the world and her sister that she was unstoppable. Baisa walked through the grand hall, taking in the scene she had created, and a quiet pride settled over her. Every corner of the venue reflected her vision. The flowers were perfectly arranged, the lighting soft but striking, the tables dressed in elegance that made the room feel magical. Her team moved with precision, following every instruction she had given, and the music set the perfect mood, flowing seamlessly from one moment to the next. Guests began to arrive, and as they stepped inside, their eyes widened. Whispers filled the room, soft but filled with awe. "This is even better than Zoe's engagement party," someone murmured, and another guest nodded. "I've never seen anything like this." Each comment, each glance of admiration, reminded Baisa of how far she had come. She moved gracefully among the guests, checking on details, but her attention was drawn to Zoe standing in the corner. Her sister's usual arrogance was gone. She looked small, unsure, and no longer in control. Zoe tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Baisa felt a rush of satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from the sheer power of truth being revealed. Her talent, her hard work, and her determination were now visible to everyone. Cameras flashed as photos were taken, capturing the beauty of the decorations, the smiles of the guests, and the seamless flow of the evening. People began taking videos and sharing them on social media. And within minutes, messages of admiration started pouring in. "Who planned this? Absolutely incredible. I need this planner for my wedding." The attention wasn't just local, it spread online, and everyone was talking about Baisa's touch. She didn't need to speak her story, the room itself told it. The same people who had doubted her, who had laughed or ignored her before, were now applauding her genius. The contrast was sharp, and it wasn't lost on anyone, least of all Zoe. Watching her sister struggle to regain composure while guests marveled at the elegance and perfection of the event gave Baisa a quiet sense of justice. She had taken all the humiliation, all the sneers, and turned them into fuel for something extraordinary. The room hummed with admiration, and Baisa moved through it, calm, collected, and confident. Tonight, the world saw her talent, her creativity, and her resilience. She didn't need to announce her triumph. The perfection of the party, the stunned reactions of the guests, and the inability of her sister to compete spoke louder than words ever could. Baisa had not only executed an event, she had claimed her place, proven her worth, and left everyone, including Zoe, in a as the evening reached its peak. The guests gathered for the final toast, glasses sparkling under the warm lights. Baisa stepped forward, her posture calm and confident, her eyes scanning the crowd. She held the microphone with ease, her voice soft but clear, carrying across the room. Then, with a simple, almost casual tone, she said, "I was the one who funded my sister's first big event. Yet I wasn't allowed to enter." The room went silent for a heartbeat, and then gasps rippled through the crowd. People turned to one another, whispers spreading like wildfire. Eyes widened, and jaws dropped as everyone realized the truth. The sister they had thought powerless and quiet had been the force behind the first grand event all along. They had applauded the beauty, the elegance, the flawless execution of past parties. But now they understood who had really made it happen. The admiration shifted, and suddenly, all the attention that Zoe had once claimed was redirected toward Bisa. Cameras clicked, people took videos, and some even stood up, clapping and nodding in recognition of her talent. Zoe, standing frozen in a corner, could barely breathe, her face drained of color, and the confident, controlling mask she wore all these years melted away in front of everyone. The humiliation she had inflicted on her sister months ago now returned, amplified and undeniable. Every guest who had seen the first party, every friend who had assumed Zoe was the mastermind, now knew the truth. Bisa's calm revelation had unmasked the lies, the false pride, and the unfairness that had once pushed her aside. The room was buzzing not with gossip, but with admiration for Bisa, for the woman who had endured betrayal and turned it into brilliance. She didn't shout, she didn't accuse, she simply stated the truth, and that was enough. People now looked at Zoe differently, surprised, shocked, and unsure. Bisa had flipped the script entirely, showing that her strength, intelligence, and talent were not just visible but undeniable. The quiet satisfaction she felt was deeper than any revenge. It was the recognition she deserved, shared openly in front of the world. As whispers continued and eyes remained fixed on her, Bisa realized the power of truth. One sentence had undone months of arrogance, rewritten perceptions, and placed her firmly at the center of respect and admiration. Zoe could do nothing but watch as the very guests she once impressed now celebrated the sister she had tried to erase. The balance had shifted completely, and Bisa had done it with elegance, courage, and undeniable brilliance. After that night, Bisa's name seemed to be everywhere. Social media was buzzing with photos and videos of her events, people tagging her, sharing compliments, and asking who had planned such perfection. Business magazines began featuring her in articles about rising talent, and influencers posted about her work, praising the creativity and elegance she brought to every celebration. Slowly but surely, Bisa transformed her small event business into a full-fledged empire she called Bisa Creations. She hired a talented team, expanded her services, and took on bigger projects, weddings, galas, corporate events, each one more impressive than the last. Her reputation grew so fast that booking her became a mark of prestige. Everyone wanted Bisa to plan their special occasions because she didn't just decorate spaces, she created experiences people remembered. Her attention to detail, her calm confidence, and her creative ideas made her events feel magical, and clients were willing to pay top dollar for her services. Meanwhile, Zoe, who had once been the center of attention and had tried to keep Bisa invisible, found herself struggling. The contacts she once relied on no longer called. Her attempts to organize events ended in disappointment, as clients preferred to hire Bisa instead. Invitations she sent out were ignored, and people whispered about how her taste and planning could not compare to the woman she had humiliated. Zoe's name, once associated with glamour and influence, began to fade, while Bisa's shined brighter than ever. The power had completely shifted, drove her to the top. With each new project, she built not just events, but a legacy, one that inspired admiration and respect. Zoe, who had tried to block her, could only watch from the sidelines as the sister she once controlled became the most sought-after planner in the city. The tables had turned completely, and the shift was undeniable. Bisa had the power now, and Zoe had lost it. The city, the clients, the social circles, all recognized the brilliance that could not be stopped. Bisa Creations became a name everyone trusted, admired, and wanted to work with, while Zoe's influence quietly disappeared, replaced by the unstoppable rise of a sister who had once been pushed aside, but now ruled the stage of her own making. One evening, Bisa's phone rang, and when she saw Zoe's name, she felt a flicker of curiosity but no fear or anger. Zoe's voice on the other end was hesitant, shaky, and almost pleading. "Please, can you help me plan a small gathering?" she asked, the words soft and almost desperate. Bisa stayed quiet for a moment, listening carefully, letting the weight of the past hang in the silence. She remembered the humiliation, the party she had funded but wasn't allowed to attend, the way Zoe had tried to erase her in front of everyone. The anger and hurt were still there, but now they were mixed with the calm power of knowing she had risen above it all. Finally, Bisa spoke, her voice steady and clear, without any bitterness or emotion that would give Zoe hope. "I don't plan for people who tried to erase me." She didn't argue, she didn't explain, she didn't beg. She simply hung up, the finality in her tone echoing louder than any words could. The call ended, and Bisa felt a strange sense of satisfaction, like a quiet bell ringing inside her. Justice, done not through confrontation, but through her actions and choices. Zoe, on the other end, could only sit in silence, realizing too late that her sister had become untouchable, respected, and unstoppable. The power dynamic that had once humiliated Bisa had now completely reversed. Word of the call spread quickly in the family, and everyone began to understand what they had done. The same people who had once laughed at her, ignored her contributions, and let her feel invisible were now watching from the sidelines, seeing that their attempts to control or belittle her had only made her stronger. Bisa had created an empire with her talent, her vision, and her perseverance. A business so respected that even her sister, who once blocked her entry at a lavish party, now had to admit defeat. The family realized in that moment that humiliation had consequences, and trying to push someone down could instead lift them higher than anyone imagined. Bisa didn't need to gloat or seek revenge in words. Her success, her calm confidence, and her refusal to be controlled spoke for itself. She had set the rules for her life, and no one, not even family, could dictate them anymore. That evening was more than a simple rejection of a request for help. It was a statement of power, self-respect, and triumph. Bisa had risen from being invisible to being the center of attention, and Zoe had finally seen that trying to erase her had only created a force that could not be stopped. The family, and especially Zoe, now understood that humiliation could never hold back someone with talent, determination, and the courage to rewrite her own story. One evening, Bisa's phone rang, and when she saw Zoe's name, she felt a flicker of curiosity but no fear or anger. Zoe's voice on the other end was hesitant, shaky, and almost pleading. "Please, can you help me plan a small gathering?" she asked, the words soft and almost desperate. Bisa stayed quiet for a moment, listening carefully, letting the weight of the past hang in the silence. She remembered the humiliation, the party she had funded but wasn't allowed to attend, the way Zoe had tried to erase her in front of everyone. The anger and hurt were still there, but now they were mixed with the calm power of knowing she had risen above it all. Finally, Bisa spoke, her voice steady and clear, without any bitterness or emotion that would give Zoe hope. "I don't plan for people who tried to erase me." She didn't argue, she didn't explain, she didn't beg. She simply hung up, the finality in her tone echoing louder than any words could. The call ended, and Bisa felt a strange sense of satisfaction, like a quiet bell ringing inside her. Justice, done not through confrontation, but through her actions and choices. Zoe, on the other end, could only sit in silence, realizing too late that her sister had become untouchable, respected, and unstoppable. The power dynamic that had once humiliated Bisa had now completely reversed. Word of the call spread quickly in the family, and everyone began to understand what they had done. The same people who had once laughed at her, ignored her contributions, and let her feel invisible were now watching from the sidelines, seeing that their attempts to control or belittle her had only made her stronger. Bisa had created an empire with her talent, her vision, and her perseverance. A business so respected that even her sister, who once blocked her entry at a lavish party, now had to admit defeat. The family realized in that moment that humiliation had consequences, and trying to push someone down could instead lift them higher than anyone imagined. Bisa didn't need to gloat or seek revenge in words. Her success, her calm confidence, and her refusal to be controlled spoke for itself. She had set the rules for her life, and no one, not even family, could dictate them anymore. That evening was more than a simple rejection of a request for help. It was a statement of power, self-respect, and triumph. Bisa had risen from being invisible to being the center of attention, and Zoe had finally seen that trying to erase her had only created a force that could not be stopped. The family, and especially Zoe, now understood that humiliation could never hold back someone with talent, determination, and the courage to rewrite her own story. The night of the award ceremony arrived, and Bisa stepped onto the stage with quiet confidence, her heart steady and her smile calm. The room was full of top event planners, clients, and media, all gathered to celebrate the best in the industry. When her name was called, the applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed, capturing every moment, her poise, her elegance, the pride in her eyes that came not from arrogance, but from knowing how far she had come. As she accepted the award, she thought of every struggle, every insult, every moment she had been pushed aside, and she felt a deep satisfaction. This wasn't just an award. It was proof of her talent, her persistence, and her unstoppable rise. Photos of her grace, intelligence, and creativity were everywhere the next day. On social media, in business magazines, and on every influencer's feed, people talked about the planner who could turn any event into something magical, the woman whose name had become synonymous with excellence. Meanwhile, Zoe watched from home, scrolling through the posts and videos, pale and speechless. She had once controlled, humiliated, and ignored her sister, but now all she could do was watch as the world celebrated the very person she had tried to erase. Bisa didn't need to gloat, call, or speak to her sister. She didn't need to prove herself with words because her work and her recognition had already done it. The ultimate revenge had been served not with anger or confrontation, but with success so undeniable that no one, not even her sister, could challenge it. Bisa had transformed humiliation into fuel, betrayal into motivation, and disrespect into determination. Standing on that stage, holding her award, she felt untouchable, respected, and unstoppable. Every struggle, every sleepless night planning events, every ounce of effort had led to this moment. The applause, the admiration, the recognition, it all belonged to her, earned through skill and perseverance. That night marked more than a personal victory. It was a statement to the world and to her family. The girl they had tried to erase was now celebrated, sought after, and admired by everyone. Bisa walked off the stage with her head held high, knowing she had reached the pinnacle of her field without compromise, without malice, and without needing anyone's approval. The story had turned completely, and she had emerged as the one in control, the one respected, and the one who could never be ignored. Her victory was complete, quiet but absolute, and it left no doubt. Bisa's rise was unstoppable, and she had done it all on her own terms.